Philippine Agricultural Engineering Standard, PAES 404 Series of 2001. Agricultural Structures, Housing for Goat and Sheep. Foreword. The formulation of this national standard was initiated by the AMTEC under the project entitled, Enhancing the Implementation of the AFMA through Improved Agricultural Engineering Standards, which was funded by the Bureau of Agricultural Research of the Department of Agriculture. The word, shall, is used to indicate requirements strictly to be followed in order to conform to the standard and from which no deviation is permitted. The word, should, is used to indicate that among several possibilities one is recommended as particularly suitable, without mentioning or excluding others, or that a certain course of action is preferred but not necessarily required. Scope. This standard specifies the minimum requirements for goat and sheep housing. It includes space requirement, feeding, watering and handling facilities. Definitions. For the purpose of this standard, the following definitions shall apply. Buck, mature male goat. Doe, mature female goat that has kidded. Dry doe, doe without milk. Kid, young goat under 6 months old of either sex. Ewe, mature female sheep that has already lambed. Lamb, sheep under 6 months of age. Ram, mature male sheep. Location. The location shall conform to the land use plan of the area. The site shall be accessible to service roads, water supply and electric lines. The site shall be well drained and allows for free air circulation. The building shall be constructed in an east-west orientation and the structure for marketable animals shall be located near the service road. The site shall be located where the prevailing winds will not carry odors to the farmhouse. Classification. Type of housing. Shed type. Animals can move freely in or out of the housing area and into the paddock or feeding area. Feeding and watering trough. Mineral feeders and grain bunks are located on concrete pads at the center or along the side of the shed. Pen barn type. Stall barns. Each animal is confined in a stall. Stalls are provided with individual feeding and watering trough. Confined housing. In confined housing, see Figure 3, group pens for animals with the same sizes should be constructed and provided with an ample area for exercise. Feeding troughs should be fenced off with bamboo or wooden slats providing ample space that will enable the animals to insert only its head. This will prevent the animal from stepping or trampling the grasses. Watering devices should be placed in an area where spilled water will not mess up the pen. Space requirement. The recommended minimum floor space requirement for goats and sheep in intensive production related to weight is shown in Table 1. For a doe or ewe with a live weight of 35 kilograms requires a minimum floor space of 0.8 square meter per animal for solid floor, 0.7 square meter per animal for slotted floor, and 2 square meter per animal for open yard. For a doe or ewe with a live weight of 50 kilograms requires a minimum floor space of 1.1 square meter per animal for solid floor, 0.9 square meter per animal for slotted floor, and 2.5 square meter per animal for open yard. For doe or ewe with a live weight of 70 kilograms requires a minimum floor space of 1.4 square meter per animal for solid floor, 1.1 square meter per animal for slotted floor, and 3 square meter per animal for open yard. For kid or lamb it requires a minimum floor space of 0.4 to 0.5 square meter per animal for solid floor, and 0.3 to 0.4 square meter per animal for slotted floor. For buck or ram it requires a minimum floor space of 3 square meter per animal for solid floor, and 2.5 square meter per animal for slotted floor. For the pregnant and lactating doe or ewe, the minimum floor space requirement related to weight is shown in Table 2. For small doe or ewe with a weight ranging from 50 to 70 kilograms, it requires 1.3 square meter per animal for pregnant, and 2 square meter per animal for lactating. For large doe or ewe with a weight ranging over 70 kilograms, it requires 1.6 square meter per animal for pregnant, and 2.3 square meter per animal for lactating. If you like this video, you can support this channel by clicking the subscribe button and hit the notification bell, so that we can make more videos related to agricultural and biosystems engineering. Give your comments and suggestions in the comments section below. You can also follow me in Facebook. A fenced loafing area of 150 meters per 50 head shall be provided adjacent to the animal housing. Structural requirement. Floor. For slatted floor, the slats should be 70 mm to 100 mm wide, 25 mm to 30 mm thick, and should be laid with slot space of 10 mm to 25 mm. For goats, staircase type and elevated type of slatted flooring should be constructed. The minimum step width shall be 800 mm and the vertical distance between steps shall be 300 mm. If the slatted floor is made of galvanized welded mesh, see Figure 4, the diameter of the wire shall be 5 mm and the mesh spacing shall be 20 mm. The slatted floor shall be at least 1 meter above the ground. The floor underneath the slatted floor should be either concrete or rammed earth floor that slopes towards the drainage. The concrete floor shall have a minimum slope of 2% and the earth floor shall have a minimum slope of 4%. For concrete floor, it shall be skid resistant and well drained. The floor slope should be 2% to 4%. Roof. Adequate roofing shall be provided against rain and intense heat from the sun. For the shed-type housing, the roof shall slope towards the back of the shed. The height of the front eave shall be at least 2 meters and the height of the rear eave shall be at least 1.5 meter. For adequate ventilation, roof slope shall not be less than 25%. If roofing is made of indigenous materials, the minimum roof slope shall be 58%. Wall. Adequate walling shall be provided against rain. A clearance of 150 mm to 300 mm between floor to wall and wall to beam should be provided to create an adequate circulation of air into lower draft. Functional requirement. Pens for pen barn type housing. Height of pen wall and gate shall vary according to breed, but shall not be less than 1.2 meter. Pen wall and gates should be made of cyclone wire, metal bars or wooden slats. For metal bars and wooden slats, slot size should be 50 mm to 100 mm. If the wall is galvanized welded or woven mesh, see Figure 5, the maximum mesh dimension shall be 100 mm by 100 mm and the post shall be made up of galvanized steel, 70 mm in diameter. Fittings and internal surfaces of all buildings and equipment to which the animals have access shall not have sharp edges or projections. Surfaces shall not be treated with paints or wood preservatives that may cause illness or death. A brooder box shall be provided for newly born kids or lambs. One side shall be open and box dimension should be 500 mm by 450 mm by 350 mm. The pen for the kids or lambs shall have at least one side slatted to permit air movement. Each pen shall be provided with hay racks, feed and water troughs. Pen facilities. Feeding trough and hay racks. Feeding troughs should be trapezoidal or semi-cylindrical. The feeding trough depth should be 180 mm to 250 mm with a width of 300 mm and it shall be raised off the ground at least 150 mm to keep the animals out. Hay racks shall have diagonal or vertical slats with a minimum spacing of 130 mm, see Figure 6. Hay racks shall be properly positioned and designed to avoid the risk of injury. Recommended minimum linear feeding space to weight is shown in Table 3. For doe or ewe with a live weight of 35 kg requires a minimum linear feeding space of 350 mm per animal. For doe or ewe with a live weight of 50 kg requires a minimum linear feeding space of 400 mm per animal. For doe or ewe with a live weight of 70 kilograms requires a minimum linear feeding space of 450 millimeters per animal. For kid or lamb it requires a minimum linear feeding space of 250 millimeters per animal. For buck or rum it requires a minimum linear feeding space of 500 millimeters per animal. Watering facility. Water troughs should preferably concrete. Figure 7 shows a typical example of water trough. In an open tank drinking system, 300 millimeters of space is required for each 15 to 25 head. In an automatic watering system, one bowl or nipple shall be provided for every 50 head. Watering devices shall be placed in an area where spilled water is easily drained. For free range, apron around the waterers shall be paved or packed with gravel at least 750 millimeters width. Breeding facilities optional. A separate kidding or lambing pen with a minimum dimension of 1 meter by 1.5 meters shall be provided. For every 10 does or ewe, one kidding or lambing pen shall be provided. Buck or ram shall be housed separate from milking herd and downwind from the milking herd. Milking area optional. Milking area shall be separated from where the goats are kept and it shall be provided with milking stall. Lighting and electrical installation. The housing shall be provided with lighting intensity of 200 lux. Refer to Annex B. All electrical installations shall be inaccessible to all animals and it shall conform to Philippine Electrical Code. Field fencing. The height of the fence shall be at least 1.5 meter. Posts shall be spaced not more than 4 meters apart and shall be embedded at least 300 millimeters into the ground. If woven wire is used as fencing material, the maximum spacing between horizontal lines should be 150 millimeters. However, the spacing between the horizontal lines can be made wider as the fence gets taller. If barbed wire is used as fencing material, it should be only utilized beyond the half-meter line of the fence. Waste disposal. For waste management, refer to PAES 414 series of 2002 Agricultural Structures, Waste Management Structures.